Hey yo, thank you for coming by Two Tales. Of course, I'm your host, Anthium, and this is 10 questions for Tommy Tallarico. Now, up in this corner, there should be a screenshot of a small exchange that we had. And of course, I could read this as he's hoping to see something really weird and have a list of questions for me, but that's very unlikely. So I'm going to interpret this as he's encouraging me to ask some questions. So, question number point five. Ha! I lied. There's going to be more than 10 questions. Question point five. Can my family and I get your autograph? What?
It's on the Founders Edition.
Right. Founders Edition. You win this round, Mr. Tallarico. Hello, everyone. I appreciate it if you're still here after that little bit of silliness. So let me clarify what's going on here. I did, in fact, have an exchange with Tommy Tallarico, and he seemed to encourage me to make a list of questions for him. Now, I probably could cut the guy some slack and send him like an email or a message, but that wouldn't be fun, and you would have a delay in finding out well, what was really going on? Because, well, it's 10 questions. So since this is not an interview, this is just 10 questions, and I have no idea if he will answer. And of course, he's very busy. So if he can't, I completely understand. So I'm going to try and ask some questions that I would actually like to know the answer to, but I'm also going to try and make it a little entertaining for you guys. Now, let me tell you what this is not going to be. If you're looking for hardcore Amico questions, there's some Amico questions. But that's not really what this is. If you're looking for some gotcha moments, you're probably not going to find that because, while it's obvious I'm a fan of the Amico, I support Intellivision's mission, and I'll admit I'm a bit of a fan of Tommy Tallarico, and I had some serious questions. That's not really good for either entertainment or for this. So my motivation, and just track with me for just a moment here. Let's really think what's going on here. So you have someone like me, right? And, you know, I'm a very average guy. I work pretty much a mundane job. I've never really pursued a career. You know, I don't have much going on other than my family. So the odds of someone like me having an invitation to ask questions of someone that meets the following characteristics. So just think about this for a moment. You have a chance to talk to someone who has gone from kind of like a rags to riches story. Someone who has been instrumental and actually involved with almost every pop culture influence in regards to video games of your childhood. Someone who is artistic, who has... Yeah, that would be my wife. Okay, let's talk about my Tommy and stop listing off the characteristics of my wonderful, lovely Mrs. Two Tails wife. But yes, I'm old. You're not. Yes, no, you're not. But at the same time, when I was a kid, I adored video games. I used to sit around with my friends and we'd come up with card games, board games, all sorts of stuff like that. And I used to have a subscription my parents got for the household for not Game Informer, but Game Pro, if anybody out there remembers that magazine. And I remember the article where they talked about the first video game school to open in the United States. And there was a specific picture of like this vampire hunter in blue armor, and he had this wrist crossbow with these two giant stakes aimed up at like the camera. It was an epic picture, and quietly I just what I wanted to do. But my parents always saw greater things for me. Like I mentioned before, there was a big push for me to get into law. I found out case law was boring. I've said that before. But the point is this is a gentleman who has been successful in an industry that for years, decades, I've quietly wanted to be a part of. And I've dabbled here or there, right? But that's not the point. So not only is he a successful rags to riches story, someone that I would normally not ever encounter, but then you would add into the fact that this is a guy who is in the Guinness Book of World Records, not just once, but a handful of times. if this was an NPC, he'd be like a legendary NPC, right? This would be like you have a chance to talk to a favorite actor or a favorite author or someone along those lines. You don't get this opportunity very often. So in light of that, and hopefully you understand some of my motivation here, we're going to get started. And just know that, much like Tommy Tallarico said to Turbo Joe on his interview, everyone grills him about the Amico, but no one really asks him questions about himself. So just be prepared for that. So question number one, seriously, and this one actually doesn't account either. How are you, Mr. Tallarico? How is your family? How are your coworkers and your employees? I know it's very tough right now. I know the shutdowns are getting worse. And Mrs. Two Tails would like to know, more importantly, how are the velociraptors by your pool? Inquiring minds want to know, and have you upgraded to the blue model? Because blue is the coolest raptor. Sorry. Fred and George? All right. So, first serious question for you. So, seriously, how cool is Doug TeNapel? I know it's a trolling question. It's not a serious question, but there's a background story for it. I'm going to include a Twitter tweet from January of last year right up here. So I did this to him, actually, because I just gotten the Making of Earthworm Jim, and I just learned really who you were and how instrumental you were into a lot of the games that were influential in my childhood. So I just wanted to troll Doug TeNapel. He strikes me as a bit of a contrarian, and he's always kind of trolling people to a humorous degree. So gave him a tape of his own medicine. And with that being said, it was only fair if I did the same to you. So yes, how cool is Doug TeNapel really? All right. So next question, and this one actually has to do with the Amico. I'm a huge fan of Burger Time. I know you know who Generational Gamer, J Prime, GG, whatever you want to call him. He's got a lovely family story about Burger Time. Guys, check his channel out. I'll include a link down below. I don't have a sentimental story like that. I just love the game. Now, a handful of years ago, I got Burger Time World Tour. I believe it was on PlayStation 2 or PlayStation 3. I played it with my daughter quite a bit. They had boss fights, and there was all sorts of like floaty jump mechanics and little letters you could pick up. And I don't know if you can answer the question, but is there any sort of taste or information you can give us on what you guys will be doing differently with Burger Time? You know, how is it going to differ? Because believe it or not, if I recall, Burger Time World Tour was not very well received by the fans of Burger Time. All right, so next question. Actually, next question, I had to look at my list. You actually discussed this on the Q&A with Pete about a week ago. And if anybody hasn't seen that actual Q&A, I'm going to include the link for that down below, or maybe on a card here. I'm still figuring it all out. But definitely check out the Q&A. Lots of really good information, lots of exclusive information, plenty to be excited about. All right, so next question. Mr. Tallarico, you have said on a number of your interviews that you're vegan. So, what is your favorite dish? Why? How do you make it? Will there be a cooking show coming soon? Because if so, I'll tune in for it. All right, so moving on to, if we're keeping track, like question 6 or 7, I'm not really keeping track. I lost track like at 0.5. But so the next one is there around Mother's Day, you made a general comment that was actually, it was kind of amusing to me, but you referenced that your children were your dogs. Now, so far, I've only seen Houdini, and much like when my children bomb my videos, I like when Houdini shows up. He's a gorgeous dog. Huskies are actually Siberian Huskies are my favorite dog with the way they look. I'd love to have one, don't have one. So Houdini's a big win in my book. But do you have more than one dog? And if you do, which one is secretly Tommy Jr.? I've got to know. All right, so hold on one second. I'm going to cut the video here. I have to go find something that Calicorn, my daughter, helped me with. And I will be right back. Okay. I'm back. Thank you for your patience. Admittedly, for a question and questions, since it's not really a Q&A, I probably should have been better prepared. So, with that being said, so about a month or so ago, I was working on the Underdog animation, and I posted this up on Twitter. And it looks like a Pez dispenser. And you were like, hey, I like this idea. So I was talking with my daughter, and I had another thought. So if Intellivision can pin down an arrangement with the Pez dispensers, right? What do you think about a collector set where each one of the 5 is a color of one of the 5 consoles you are releasing? I would buy a box set of Intellivision Man, Amico colored Pez dispensers, and the candy wouldn't last long either. Okay, so moving on, we're roughly about question 9, 10-ish. With that being said, so I know there's still a lot of patent pending, and there's a lot of stuff going on with the system and a lot of information that has not been shared with the general public. So if you can tell us, what is actually your favorite feature on the Amico? What is it? Why do you like it so much? What is it? And even if it's a matter of simply put that it's something like the couch co-op, which you don't get as hardcore as you guys are going after, that's fine. I'm just curious. All right, so another question from Mrs. Two Tails. She wants to know, are you a fan of Halloween? If so, will we see eventually like a burnt candy orange Amico? Why? Because it matches the color of her motorcycle. She likes to accessorize. Okay, if you didn't understand that, she says if you could rate her motorcycle on a scale of 10 to 10 because of how awesome it actually is. She wants your honest opinion. The answer's 10. All right, so here's a bit of a curveball question for you because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense because no one really cares, I think, to this degree. But I'm curious. So, there's a lot of really great titles and hits that you have squared away for the Amico, a lot of stuff in the works and so forth. But is there a definitive title that you tried to get that you could not get? And if in fact, flat out cancellation, because I know, for example, like Pitfall, they're like, hey, come back to us when the console's up and running and we'll revisit this, and that's great. But was there a title that you couldn't nail down for the Amico? I'm just curious on that one. Now, a tech question about the Amico. So we're now up to about question 11, question 12. And this might be over analytical on my part. I said on one video that mechanically speaking, I couldn't think of anything truly unique in regards to the controllers other than maybe the LED lights. Well, I've had reason to rethink that. And for some reason, the acrylic screens really stuck in my head. So I started doing some research. And for anyone out there that's curious, what I've learned is that acrylic usually basically comes in 2 forms. There's extruded, and then there's cast acrylic. Extruded is very malleable, so that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about a cast acrylic. It's apparently difficult to make. It has to be done in a controlled environment because it's very easy to contaminate the material. But what I also learned in the process of doing research on the matter is that plexiglass is actually a combination of cast acrylic and glass. So we're talking about a very, very high-end acrylic here. You're like looking at if there's like tier 1's extruded, tier 2 would be glass, tier 3 would be plexiglass, and when you're talking about hardcore straight super acrylic, you're like tier 4 here. So the question is other than, was the hardness, was it the resilience of the acrylic the reason for going with acrylic? Is there other advantages that we don't know about? For example, does it work better with, for example, the tactile suction cup buttons and so forth? Because I can see where glass might bow or whatever have you, but I'm just kind of curious, was there other motivations to going with acrylic for the screens? If so, what are some of the advantages of having it other than that it's just durable? And if it's just because it's durable, I'm cool with that too. Okay, so not to make this super long, because I'm aware that I'm brushing probably 15 to 20 minutes now. Upcoming next is a series of questions from my kids. I know some people out there that have given me flack on my channel, which is fine. They're going to hear certain questions, and they're going to conclude that my children were coached in this matter. They weren't. My children, I gave them a shot to come up with a series of questions, and then I helped coach them through it in regards to remembering which questions they had last. We had a list. But anyway, I'm calling this the lightning round. Go!
I'm gonna make a go coming green?
Can you go come with Minecraft?
What did make go coming green?
Can you publish my daddy's games because they're really cool?
Okay.
Will you add Plants vs. Zombies?
Do you like My Little Pony?
What's my favorite color?
Oh, dear.
What's your favorite place?
My favorite color is green.
What's your job?
What's your favorite job?
Where have you never been?
What's your favorite animal?
Favorite holiday? Mine's Christmas.
What's your favorite animal?
Thank you so much for getting to the end of this. I hope you guys were generally entertained, and I hope that you know, this was taken just as that, genuine questions for someone that I have a great deal of respect for and am genuinely curious about. Now, upcoming for the channel, I have some animated shorts I have not started on yet. They're inspired by OEB Pete. You know, asking me what does the fox say in regards to my logo, that was too much for me to resist. Number two, I'm very pleased to announce that the prologue for Course, the first audience-selected tale for Two Tales, it has been scripted. It has been put into the video maker that I use, and now I have to adjust the timing and get an audio recording of the actual narration for it. So the very first prologue to the story is going to be going up. Very excited about that. Please stay tuned. And I'm going to try and figure out how to post the link in the video for an explanation, of course, that I did just a little while ago. As far as additional things for the channel, we're at a point where I've really addressed a lot of the confronting criticism, where I tackle, like, you know, opinion topics and move on. So I'm moving away from confronting criticism, and we'll be talking really soon in another video about certain business concepts on how retail businesses function and so forth. Because while people know that I work in manufacturing right now, I have an extensive history. Hold that thought. Sorry about that. So moving forward, you'll see less confronting criticism unless something actually comes up to it. And I will actually be discussing business concepts in regards to like retail business and the approach Intellivision is taking. So less about the console, more about the business aspects. Because as I was saying, while I work in manufacturing now, the truth is, well, I've had a lot of different jobs. Most of them have been in retails, sales, and hospitality. I've gone through a lot of customer service training programs, a lot of different management training programs. So there's some concepts I've become very familiar with, and I think it sheds a lot of light into some of the stuff that we actually see. And of course, even if I'm way off base, it should be a good educational chat. And I'm also thinking about adding one additional new feature to the channel. Not really a feature, but a topic. And think about calling it Week of Mobile Play, or WOMP for short, where basically I'll pick a game title off the mobile, and I'll play it in small increments over a week's time, and post the videos with some commentary about strengths, drawbacks, whether I recommend it or not. If you're interested in any of these things, please feel free to leave a message down below, or seek me out on one of the social media accounts that are actually tied to the channel. And and Mr. Tallarico, if you have indeed actually watched this video, thank you for your time. While a response would be appreciated, of course, obviously, I understand that if it cannot be done, that's cool. And so to Tommy and everybody, thank you for being here. All the best.